Joining us now from the Vatican is Bishop Robert Barron of the Diocese of Winona, Rochester in Minnesota. Bishop, great to have you back on the show. When we spoke to you 24 hours ago, there was speculation about who the choice might be. A long shot, I think it's fair to say, was then Cardinal Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV. What are your thoughts this morning?
Well, I was one of those people saying it'll never be an American. His name was mentioned. Everyone knew his qualities, but everybody said it won't be an American. I was standing right here doing a little interview, and then the roar went up behind me, and we couldn't believe it was such an early election. You know, after I've gotten over the shock a bit, and last night with the adrenaline going, I had trouble getting to sleep. I kept drifting back to his name. His name, I think, is extraordinarily important. If he was, you know, simply continuity with Francis, why wouldn't he be Francis II? He didn't choose that name. He could have chosen a name like John Paul III, like John the 24th, and would have given a very clear indication, I'm on this side or that side. The fact that he reached back to the very end of the 19th century, to this figure, Leo XIII, is very telling. Leo was someone who, at a pivotal moment, engaged modernity in a creative way. The church had said no initially to the political reforms of the 18th century, the philosophical innovations of the 19th century, especially Marxism. It simply said no. Leo gave a very nuanced response that was both affirming and challenging. And therefore, he sets the tone, I think, for a very intelligent, creative engagement with the modern world. I think that's what our new Pope was signaling by choosing this extraordinary name. My other thought was, I'm the same generation as this man. We're like 4 years apart in age. I grew up in decent traffic about 25 minutes from where he did. So it is kind of amazing to think of the Pope as speaking with a South Side Chicago accent, as I do. There's something, I think, wonderful for Americans about that. But he's someone that will lift up the whole church for sure.
Jonathan Lemire, Ed Kilgore in New York Magazine talked about the name taken by the new Pope. And this is what he wrote. It's in this morning's New York Magazine. The new Pope took the name Leo XIV, which could have been an indication of the legacy he hopes to leave. It's a pretty clear shout out to Leo XIII, the late 19th century pontiff who laid out a template for a distinctively Catholic social justice doctrine. Mike Barnicle was talking about this yesterday, whether it was about workers' rights or the poor. A very, very clear message sent by the selection of the name Leo.
Yeah, no question there. And as an American Catholic, I certainly was moved by the choice and then the name as well. Someone who comes at in the Francis mold. We don't know that he will follow every one of Francis's beliefs, his words, his rhetoric, but certainly still in that sort of progressive flank. One chosen in part because we will learn in days ahead, I am sure, of the cardinals that Francis installed, who were more of his cut from his cloth, who wanted to further his work for the church. It was obviously a very sort of precarious time for the church. And Bishop, I want to ask you, is beyond the initial excitement, of course, that so many American Catholics feel today, talk to us about the challenges, though, that the Pope will have here, where church attendance has dwindled, where there's sort of a rise of real conservatism within the church's ranks, who often stood against some of the teachings of Pope Francis, and of course an election of this president. Who Francis, of course, clashed with, perhaps in a subtle way, but clashed with repeatedly. And this one seems set to perhaps do the same.
Well, I think looking in the Western world, this Pope will be very concerned about evangelization and the disaffiliation of so many, especially the young. So the engagement of those good people. I think the bringing forward of the church's social teaching, which again is neither liberal nor conservative. In our terms, it's not Democratic, not Republican. It includes elements of both. And I think he's been clear, as Pope Francis was too. So we don't fit neatly into those categories at all. Leo XIII is a great example of that, by the way. When you read Rerum Novarum, is it a liberal or conservative document? Well, it's both. And in fact, to this day, liberal and conservative Catholics both reverence Leo XIII. One last thing I'd say is, I think we might be underplaying the importance of financial reform here for the cardinals that elected Leo XIV. They might look at him as an administrator, ran a worldwide order, someone who's a Vatican insider, a curial insider. That might have played a bigger role than we imagine in his election.
That is a fascinating part of it. Jon Meacham, I wanted to follow up with what the bishop said, and also the conversation with John Lemire. You know, you go on social media yesterday after the selection, and there were, you know, there was one hot take after another, that he was a leftist, that he was a Marxist, that he was this, that he was that. He actually, as the bishop said, he doesn't fit neatly into any ideological camp. These cardinals do not care about American politics. They don't vote for who's going to help the Democratic or the Republican Party the most. They are moved by the Spirit in their selection. And here you have a pope who may be seen by some in America as more liberal on the humane treatment of immigrants, may be seen as more liberal on the responsibility of caring for the poor, for the disaffected, for the least among us. He is also, though, seen as being staunchly pro-life, a supporter of traditional marriage. And then somewhere in the middle, there are hints that, like Francis, he may possibly support the blessing of same-sex unions. But again, we don't know that, and we don't know how he's going to rule. But the attempts yesterday to fit him into one neat American political ideological box was just laughable, and showed the people that were writing about it and talking about it probably actually should read the red letters, as we say.
And watch Conclave again or something. Yeah,
Exactly.
get out of the minute to minute. I think that what I found so interesting about the, if you will, the Americanization of the conversation about this choice for the universal church, right? 1.4 billion people around the world, is it was an interesting affirmation, not that one was needed, but I think it's worth pointing out, of the moral character, the moral component of so many of the debates we're having here in our public square. That is, to try to bring the new Holy Father into an American political context, I think actually says more about us than it does about him. I think it underscores that there is a huge moral component with the basic drift in the American body politic toward an autocratic, nativistic ethos. And I think that it says, to me anyway, that there are people who may not want to acknowledge that there's a significant moral component here, but there is. And again, it says a bit more about us, I think, than the Holy Father. The only other point I'd make is the gospel of Jesus Christ is the most revolutionary of things. It is the last shall be first, the first shall be last. As you've been quoting Matthew 25, it is a faith in which our ordinary expectations of temporal and earthly power, authority, and hierarchy will be reversed. Because, as it says, I think in Acts, God has made of one blood the nations of the world. And at our best in the United States, we follow the Declaration of Independence, which Jefferson wrote that sentence, that critical sentence, not because he was not particularly passionate Anglican in those days, but because he believed in the principle of equality. And the principle of equality is at the heart of the gospel.